Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Inside Mortgages. Today I'm here with Mark Edwards, the founder and principal of Mortgages and Insurance Solutions, Daniel O'Keefe, one of our senior brokers, and David Lockwood, a property investor. Hello everyone, how are you all doing today?
I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm good as well. Mark?
I'm very well, thank you.
And David, thank you for being here again today.
Thank you, yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I have a problem. I mean, it's not so much of a problem, but I'm new to buy-to-let, me and my brother specifically, and it is something that we want to get into. So, little scenario, he's got the deposit income, I've got the income, he's got really bad credit though, like really bad credit. Okay. So, how would it work? How can we start? I'm hoping you guys can all give me some advice, some knowledge.
That's really interesting.
Get me started.
Yeah, I think we can help with that, Salome. Okay, so that's a common scenario. You've got two individuals. One has the income, the other has the deposit. We put aside the adverse credit for a moment, but that's a common scenario. People trying to get involved in property, full stop. How do they get deposit? Well, get involved in buy-to-let. We are able to do a gifted deposit, especially between family members. That's when it works best. So you can, with most of buy-to-let lenders, at least one person needs to have an income. Although we do have some lenders where an income isn't necessary, but with most of them, one of the applicants needs to have an income, but not necessarily both. Okay. So that's the first thing. Secondly, as I say, we can coming back to your adverse credit scenario. Now that may be a problem with many buy-to-let lenders. We do have some buy-to-let lenders who will lend in an adverse credit situation depending on the severity of the adverse, i.e., are they CCJs, are they defaults, are they missed payments? And it's always down to the detail as regards how old they are, what's the date these payments were missed, or the date of the CCJ and the amount, and whether it's been settled or if it's still outstanding. So depending on all of those factors, it may be possible for your brother to still be involved. If it isn't, it could be possible for him to actually gift you the deposit and you do the purchase, okay? On a buy-to-let basis. Now, the other factor is whether or not you're a first-time buyer as well as a first-time landlord.
Yeah.
Because the other thing to consider when it comes to buy-to-let is many lenders require you to be a homeowner. Okay? So that means that you can't be living with family or in rented accommodation. You need to actually own your own home before they will lend. And there's a reason for that. Many lenders, their concern will be, if you don't currently own a property, if you're not an owner-occupier, is this really a buy-to-let? Will you purchase that property on a buy-to-let basis where the loan is going to be based on the achievable rent rather than your personal income? Yeah. Their concern could be that really is what's happening here is a situation that you couldn't afford to get that property on a residential mortgage. So you thought, I know what I'll do. I'll get a buy-to-let loan and then move into the property. That's a big no-no as far as lenders are concerned. It's a big no-no as far as brokers are concerned. It's not something that we'd want to be involved in. So at the end of the day, they can't govern what's going to happen once you complete on the purchase. So what they look at it and they'll say, well, okay, what we'll do, we won't lend you, if you're a first-time buyer, first-time landlord, we'll look to not lend you more than what we would have lent you on a residential basis. Now, if it was a residential loan, that's going to be based on a multiple of your income. Typically, 4.5 to 5.5 times your income would be the maximum borrowing. So for many of the buy-to-let lenders, if you're a first-time buyer, first-time landlord, they will still lend. We've got a few lenders that will lend in that situation. However, many of them will restrict the loan to exactly the same level that they would have done if it was a residential purchase. So there's no advantage of doing what we call a backdoor buy-to-let, i.e. buying it on a buy-to-let and then looking to move into the property at a later date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some other lenders as well, they use common sense. So say, for instance, you're living and working in London, you're looking to buy a property that may not be affordable and residential, say up in Birmingham, but they look at it and say, right, it's a 2-hour commute. They're not really going to be living there and driving back down to work here. So they can take a sensible approach and say, we're happy to lend on this as a buy-to-let, as long as it makes sense. Whereas if you were buying it, 2 minutes away from your house, they could look at it and say, realistically, they're more than likely going to be moving in there.
Moving in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What about if... Okay, so I think he's being gifted the deposit. Is it possible to be gifted and then gifted again?
Okay.
Is that possible?
So who's it being gifted from?
It's a bit past the parcel.
So his partner is actually getting, I think let's not get into a lot of details, but she's getting money from a land.
From a sale, okay.
From us, yeah.
Okay.
That she inherited, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So would that be possible?
What we're going into there, that crosses over into the money laundering regulations. Sounds really. No one's suggesting that your brother's a money launderer, him or his partner. No, but no. What it is that when everybody involved in the property transaction in the chain, from the estate agent to the solicitor to the broker and the lender, each one of us have a legal obligation to do basic money laundering checks. And what that means, is that we need to establish where the original source of funds for this purchase and this transaction. It's basically to protect the economy and to ensure that illegitimate money is not being introduced into the financial system. So that's fine. So in practice, how does that work? Well, when you start the transaction, one of the things that we'll ask for is, at the very least, 3 months bank statements, showing that the money's been in the account for at least 3 months. That's shown as a minimum sort of hurdle really to demonstrate it's your money. Mm-hmm. If it's a gifted deposit, obviously it hasn't been in your account 3 months and you don't have the money. That's absolutely fine. We always recommend not moving the money. Leave it where it is, because when you start moving it around, it only makes it more complicated and draws out the process to establish where it came from. So leave it where it is. So now, if you're saying that the money's going to come from your brother, who's in turn is getting it from his partner, that's potentially okay, because there still has to be for many lenders, has to be a family relationship, and it has to be a close family relationship. It does vary from lender to lender, that the actual definition of close family, but for most lenders, it's blood relatives, i.e. siblings, mother, father, parents and children, or their siblings or step parents, that type of thing, close.
Immediate family,
yeah. Exactly. But many will consider spouses as well. So if they're in a long-term relationship, they will, even though they're not married, for some lenders, that's still acceptable. So it's potentially okay for your brother's partner to give the deposit to your brother, who in turn gives it to you. So we can, as long as we can establish the chain, and that each transfer meets the lender's criteria, then that should be okay.
Just out of curiosity, it's coming from your brother's partner. How comes he's not looking to do it with her? So it kind of doesn't complicate where the deposit's coming from.
So she doesn't work. She has some health issues. She's not. She's only been in this country for, I would say, around 6 years. So it's not something that she is looking to do in the future. It is something that he wants to do, but he believes he can't do it by himself because of his bad credit.
And lack of income.
Lack of income.
Yeah.
That's why he approached me, and we came
because
up
you're
with,
also interested in getting involved in property.
Yeah. So he came to me for advice as well. And that's why I'm coming to
another
you guys.
thing that may help in that scenario is actually also to consider what entity you buy the property in. I.e., do you buy it in your personal name?
Yeah, I was going to
Or
ask
do you buy it in a limited company?
Yeah.
Because the obviously we've discussed in previous episodes the advantage of, for many people, investing via a limited company. That's mainly from a taxation point of view because of the way the interest is treated. But on the other hand as well, it may be advantageous to do the purchase in a limited company because further down the line, it'll be easier for your brother to get involved. He can actually become a director, he can become a shareholder.
Okay.
And it'd be probably more tax efficient and more resourceful for him to be able to purchase shares in the company rather than actually try to buy a share in the property itself.
I mean, I think from my point of view of it is, I suppose you've got two options now. Because your brother has the bad adverse, whether he's doing a mortgage with yourself or a mortgage with his partner, that adverse credit is still being taken into consideration. And it's the end all and be all. You may have superb credit history, which aligns you to go with like the high street lenders. But because he's added on to it, you're no longer applicable to go with those lenders.
Yeah.
So it might even be a case that if he was to do it with himself and his partner, even though she's not working, has health issues, it still might be best for, essentially because it's her money, for them to do it together, as opposed to bringing in somebody. And like I said, it also may affect you down the line as well. Say, for instance, if you wanted to buy your own property, to either live in or to rent out, you lose, if you wanted to live in it, you lose your first-time buyer status, which means that you have to pay the extra stamp duty.
Extra stamp, yeah.
And like I said, it could also restrict you being able to get the mortgage as well. So all of these factors have to be taken into consideration. And once you've got all of that information, you're then able to say, this is the best way for either yourself and your brother or your brother and his partner to move forward.
Okay, that makes sense. David, any advice you can give?
I'll talk about it from the customer perspective, having used a mortgage advisor myself plenty of times in the past. And as somebody who has invested in property and continues to invest in property, the power of using a mortgage advisor it's invaluable. It's invaluable. And the reason for that is because the mortgage advisor will be able to, as we've already sort of established in the beginning of this podcast, exactly what it is that you need to do and pair you up with the exact lender that's going to be the right fit for you and that you're going to be the right fit for. So it's all about marrying up the knowledge with the mortgage advisor and giving them the opportunity to then find you the best deal in terms of the finance that you then need. So that's what I think is key. If you try to do it all yourself, given the current climate at the moment and the volatility of the market, the prices and the products going up and down, the criteria changes, it is so powerful now to have a mortgage advisor on your side, fighting your corner, finding the best deal for you, your family members, and once you find your first deal and you get to understand how it all works, the conversation that you then have with your mortgage advisor and the relationship that you can then build with them is that there's no ceiling to that. And it just makes for an even better process next time as well when doing whatever the next deal is. So it's about the knowledge, but it's also about the relationship and future deals that you might want to work with your mortgage advisor on to get to the goals that you want to get to.
And exactly, and I think the first thing that you do need to start doing if you are looking to buy a buy-to-let is to find an area that you know well. The rental demand in that area. Say for instance the values of that type of of those properties within that area. How do they perform over a long-standing time? Because ultimately that's what buy-to-let investment is. It's a rental demand, because if you can't rent the property, you're not earning any money and you've taken out a mortgage. And B is the overall performance of the property in that market over a sustained period of time.
The other thing that's quite interesting is, your question there as well, Salome. Neither yourself or your brother own any property currently, so you're considering your first purchase to be a buy-to-let purchase. So you're going to buy the property to let it out rather than to live in yourself. For many people, their first purchase is actually a residential to live in an owner-occupier situation. So, and I think you yourself, Danny, your first purchase was a buy-to-let as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested really as regards why you consider, Danny, why you did that, and Salome, why that's your consideration.
I think mine was more of a case of, you have a passive income per se that you could use towards, potentially getting a bigger mortgage amount for a residential. Because if we're looking at, a typical person living in London, it's getting more and more difficult for them to actually purchase a property. I mean, I think the lowest values of houses for where I'm from is about £350,000 now.
Right.
Somebody earning the average income is 35,000.
Yeah.
So realistically, you're looking at 10 times your income. So what
It's
we need
not
to
gonna happen.
No. So what we now need to do is find different ways of earning money or accumulating an income to use towards the either the deposit and or the mortgage.
So you're saying that it's doing a buy-to-let investment as your first property is actually a stepping stone to home ownership in its own right for yourself.
Yeah, because the good thing with buy-to-lets is that you can own more than one. Whereas typically, unless you are earning a substantial amount of money, you can't really own more than one residential.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's the compound effect. If you have one property where you're, say, earning £600 every month from it, if you had 10 of the same buy-to-let properties, you're now earning £6,000 a month.
Yeah.
So that then gives you £72,000 extra a year, which you can use on your along with your earned income.
To then be able to afford a higher value property that you actually want to live in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Get it.
I was also going to ask. I agree with Danny. I think it's also something that I've been looking. So when I was younger, I had the same
which
image.
wasn't so long ago.
Obviously not. But I think I've always been interested in property, and being a portfolio landlord is what I actually want to, I think, give a go when I get older.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
What type of property is the best to get as a first-time landlord? So like a flat, a house, doing a HMO. What is
that's a great question, and such a wide question as well. I think, and David will agree with me, I'm sure. It depends on what you're investing for. I think first, when you're first coming into buy-to-let, you've got to think about what's your objective. Are you investing for capital appreciation? And by that we mean the value of the property going up over time. Or are you investing for income, i.e. from a cash flow point of view of the rent coming in and getting a profit to fund your lifestyle? Because depending on which one of those two things you're looking for will determine what type of property you look to buy.
So can you give me an example for both?
Okay, so what does that mean in practice? Well, okay, let's say you're investing for income. That means you're looking for high-yielding properties. And by high-yielding, we mean the value of the rent compared to the value of the purchase price of the property. Yeah, so you're looking for a high rental, not necessarily a high-value property, because the lower the property and the higher property value or purchase price and the higher the rental, that will give you a higher yield. So it's simple figures. If the property lets for £10,000 a month and the purchase price is £100,000, then the yield is 10%. Yeah. So what you're looking for if you're investing on income are properties that, as I say, that are high yielding, which will be things that are properties that are cheaper to buy, but will have the same rental as the equivalent property. Say, to give you an example, let's say you're looking at 2-bedroom flat or a 2-bedroom house. Yeah. Let's take that another step, 2-bedroom flat above a commercial premises. yeah, that property is going to be a lot cheaper to purchase than the 2-bedroom house in the same area. Therefore, the yield on the 2-bedroom flat above commercial is going to be greater than the 2-bedroom house. So you're going to earn more on a month-to-month basis from the 2-bedroom flat above commercial than the house. However, the value of that 2-bedroom flat, it will not go up as much over time as a 2-bedroom house. So, yeah.
Okay.
So if you was investing for capital appreciation, i.e., let's say you're thinking about retiring in, say, 15 years' time. So you're looking to purchase a property today that when you come to your retirement, you'll be able to benefit from the value of that property of increasing. If you bought a series of properties that were, say, above commercial or ex-local authority, what you would find is the values haven't gone up as much or that much at all in 10 or 15 years' time. Although you have the income, you won't have the capital appreciation. So it's really important that you think about these considerations at the time you purchase a property, because that's when you have the choice. At the end of the day, when you're starting out, when you're looking to purchase a property, it's really important that you have all these considerations at that point to help you make the right decision for your circumstances.
I think there is a way of finding the mixture of both. I say, for instance, from my example, when I started looking into purchasing my buy-to-let property in Liverpool, the values of the properties when I first started was 90,000. By the time I actually purchased the property, it was 110,000. And when I remortgaged it 2 years ago, it had gone from 110 to 150 in 2 years. So
That's
How,
really good
how does it
capital
just go
appreciation.
up in value?
it's the demand, you see. It's everything. It's simple economics, supply and demand. If that area is more in demand, then the higher the prices are going to be, the higher the rents are going to be, the higher the values of the property is going to be. So it's about finding these places that may not have yet, I suppose, what you call gentrification. Because Mark will probably say, back in the early 2000s, same thing happened in Stratford.
Yeah.
You had places like maybe, houses were only, say, like 200,000. Nowadays, they're 600 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's areas where there's regeneration going on, areas that have good transport links, good schools.
And investment from the councils or government in the infrastructure in that area.
Yeah, it's looking at, it's reading reports, doing your research, looking at not just what the area looks like today, but what's planned for it in the future. Yeah. These areas where you can look to see where there's likely capital growth and demand is going to increase, which will potentially be good places to invest.
Sorry. Does refurbishing the property make it go up in value as well?
Potentially. It all depends on what you're looking to do. A lot of lenders will say, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you purchase a property and you wanted to remortgage it in the first 6 months and you haven't done any works to the property, the lender will base the value of the property of what you purchased it rather than what the actual market value is. But if you add value to the, say for instance, you've done an extension, or you created another bedroom, they can see the added value to that and would allow you to raise capital or to remortgage on the new value as opposed to what you purchased it for.
And that's a strategy that many people use. They buy a property, they renovate or refurbish it, they add value to it in that way, and then have it revalued and increase their loan from the original loan they used to purchase the property to take cash back out and then repeat the cycle.
Then repeat the same.
But that's probably another thing for your local letting agent or estate agents to tell you, if you say, for instance, if I did this work to my kitchen, it's going to cost me X amount. How much would the value of the property be after the work?
So it has to.
I think what people find as well is like, you mentioned works to the kitchen, is cosmetic changes, decor, new bathroom, new kitchen, doesn't really increase values that much. It's usually adding value by terms of increasing the size of the property, adding rooms, that type of thing, maybe taking a house and splitting it into 2 flats. That type of thing will add value, which will enable you which will create the uplift in value to enable the remortgage to release the equity.
How does that work, having a house and splitting it into flats?
Right. Okay. So if you bought a house, you could look at that house and think, let's say it's got 2 receptions and a lounge downstairs and 2 bedrooms upstairs. You can look at that, depending on the configuration. A developer might look at that, or a property investor might look at that property and think, well, you know what? You can actually reconfigure the ground floor, reconfigure the upstairs, and get 2 self-contained flats. Yeah, and the value of those 2 flats is going to be greater than, even when you take into account the conversion costs, can be much greater than the value of the house. So it could make sense to purchase that property, do that conversion, get it revalued at a much higher value. Again, if it's on a buy-to-let loan, it could be typically 75%, but we can do buy-to-lets up to 80 and even 85%, as long as the rental is high enough. So it could be quite advantageous to do that, go through that process in a short space of time, be able to get your original investment back, and maybe even money towards your next one.
And what you also see as well is, in that example, the rents for the 2 flats will be higher than just the standard house.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is all of this will be subject to planning permission. So you do need planning permission to do the conversion into 2 flats. However, what you don't need to do for finance purposes is actually create two leasehold leases. You can leave it as a house containing 2 flats, which is what we call a multi-unit block. Yeah, it may be a house containing 3 flats. It may be a house containing 4 flats, and all with no leases in place. You don't have to create the leases. We've got several lenders who will actually lend on that property as is, just a freehold containing a number of flats, number of units, which is a multi-unit block.
Okay. What about if so what if I want to split the house into flats after some time, let's say after like a year or 2? Is that possible?
Yeah. It doesn't. If you bought the property with finance, you do, strictly speaking, need the lender's
Approval.
authority and to actually do the conversion. And in many cases, they won't give it because you are affecting their security. Your loan is secured on their property. But that's another reason why people have bridging finance. Yeah,
What
to
is
pay off your
bridging
existing. Bridging finance is basically, it's a short-term loan. Yeah, it's basically a replacement. If ideally, if you had the resources, you had the cash, you would do the transaction using your own finance, because it's a situation where you're only intending the money to be out for a short period of time because something is going to happen. Either you're going to sell the property or you're going to refinance the property. I always say the thing with bridging finance is easy to get on the bridge. The most important thing is the exit, get off the bridge, because it's actually one of the most expensive ways of lending money. Typically rates are around about 1% per annum, which means 12% a year. People will do a bridging loan interest only 9 times out of 10, but they don't actually pay the interest. They take a year's interest is normally deducted from the advance. Yeah. But yeah, bridging finance has its place, because if you have a situation where you're very sure of your numbers, i.e. you can see that you can purchase a property for X, you can either, convert it or refurbish it at a fixed cost, and then there's a big uplift in value, and you can look at the cost of your bridge for whether it's 3 months or 6 months, and you can say, well, that actually makes sense, because you're going to be able to use a bridging company's loan, pay the interest for 3 or 4 months or 6 months, however long it may be, do what you need to do, get that uplift in value, and then get your money back, plus a profit. So it can make sense. Yeah. Quite often we use bridging finance in auction scenarios. But that does come with a warning, health warning, because when you purchase at auction, on the day when that hammer goes down and you're successful in your bid, you have to pay 10% on the day, 10% of the agreed purchase price, and 2, you need to complete within 28 days. Now, bear in mind, the average property transaction probably takes about 3 months.
Exactly.
You're going to be under a very strict condition to complete on that purchase within 28 days.
And you're legally liable to actually purchase the property.
If you
as
fail
well.
to complete, you are in breach of contract, and they will exercise the legal obligation. So you're going to be charged interest, and they will ultimately take the property from you, and you still owe the outstanding balance.
So what is the best thing to do before buying at auction?
Speak to a good broker like ourselves. Because what we would do in that scenario, whenever I have a client that's looking to buy at auction, the first thing I recommend is, 1, we get an agreement in principle straight away, and then 2, that's so as we know we can get them the finance, and then 2, get the valuation instructed. Most auction properties will have an open day, usually twice a week. That's so as you can view the property, but you can also send a surveyor along. So you can actually get the valuation done on behalf of the lender, the prospective lender, and that puts you in a strong position because, 1, you're going to know what the property's worth, which will give you a guide on the day of the auction as regards what you should bid up to. And then 2, most importantly, you'll know whether or not the property is mortgageable. Because 9 times out of 10, there's a reason that property is in the auction. Because everybody, typically auction properties sell below market value, and anyone who's selling the property wants to achieve market value. So,
and it's typically because it's not habitable.
It may be that the property's on a short lease. It may be that the property is suffering some sort of structural issue. But whatever it is, which may not be apparent to the naked eye, which is why it makes sense to get a surveyor in there to confirm whether or not this property is going to be suitable for lending purposes. If you get that confirmation, then you're in a very strong position when you go to the auction. You know you're not going to get caught out. You know you're not going to get burnt. You know how much you can bid to, and most importantly, you know that if you're successful with that bid, you're going to be able to complete on that purchase.
Okay, I think you guys helped me a lot.
And in regards to how would you think that you would structure the purchase that you're looking to do? Would it be limited company or
I think from what you guys said, limited company. Go with the limited company. Obviously, there's still a lot that I need to learn about it. I'm still quite new at it.
You got to do your research.
But it's definitely something that we're looking to do in the future.
And it's also interesting to take in consideration the rules and regulations around about letting your property out. I mean, it's not everywhere in the UK, but the majority of properties in London, they require you to have what they call either selective license, if you're letting it out as a standard buy-to-let. There's also an additional HMO license if you're renting out.
What's the HMO, Danny?
House of multiple occupancy. If you're renting it out to, say, 3 or 4 sharers where there's not a HMO license required by the council, or there's a HMO license where, say, for instance, more than 3 people sharing, and the council says that anybody if it's a 3-bed house with 3 people sharing, there has to be a mandatory HMO license.
If they're unrelated.
Yeah. So it all depends on how you're going to let out the property and whether you need these licenses. Because obviously, as we've seen with Rachel Reeves, it can come back to bite you.
Thank you. Thank you all for all the advice that you've given me.
Good
And
luck.
see you in the next one.
Yeah.